You know that moment when your baby won't sleep and you're sitting there thinking, is it supposed to be this hard? What am I doing wrong? So many of us have been there, including me. Today, Rachael Shepard-Ohta from Hey Sleepy Baby is back to talk about why sleep struggles feel so personal and to remind you that you're not broken, your baby's not broken, and you're not doing anything wrong. Welcome to Mom's Guide to Finding Herself, where we share stories of side hustles and surviving while parenting young children. I'm your host, Chrissy Bold. Let's make motherhood less lonely and help you find joy in being you again. I remember rocking my first baby at 3 a.m. for what felt like the 100th night in a row. My whole body ached. I was exhausted, I was desperate, and honestly, I was a little bit angry at myself, at him, and at the fact that nobody told me it could be this hard. I'd Googled everything, things like how to get your baby to sleep longer, with the tears running down my face, hoping that there was some magic answer that I could learn at 2 a.m. Now, a few years later, my kids still don't sleep much. They're just not wired that way. But we've found our rhythm. What changed wasn't their sleep, it was my mindset. And part of that shift was learning to let go of the pressure, the comparisons, and the belief that I was doing it wrong. Rachael Shepherd-Ohta is back with me today. She's a mom of 3, the host of the podcast No One Told Us, and the founder of Hey Sleepy Baby, where she supports families with gentle, attachment-focused sleep tools. And she's someone who knows firsthand what it's like to feel crushed by sleep struggles and to carry the guilt that comes with it. In this conversation, we unpack why sleep feels so personal, how the good baby myth messes with our confidence, and what it actually looks like to protect your mental health when sleep isn't going the way it's supposed to. This episode is honestly so compassionate and feels like a huge exhale for any mom who's ever wondered if it's her fault that your baby's not sleeping. Thanks so much for coming back with us today.
Thank you for having me back.
I am so excited to dive into sleep because as a new mom, my life was completely rocked by not knowing like what was going on. And my child was just not sleeping. He still doesn't, but I figured it out by now that that's just him. But when you're in it and you're sleep deprived, you feel like you're failing. We have a lot of these like norms that we've internalized and tied our success to. So can you talk about how and why moms feel like their success is tied to how well their baby's sleeping?
Yeah, it's one of my biggest pet peeves, and it makes total sense. Like, think about when you meet someone new or you're walking down the street or something like that with your new baby. One of the first questions people like to ask you is, oh, how are they sleeping? Oh, are they a good sleeper? Oh, are they a good baby? Which by good baby, they mean a baby that's quiet and that sleeps. Yeah. So, of course, if we answer, actually, no, they're not sleeping that great, it feels like we're giving the wrong answer. It feels like we should have something better to say. And so, yeah, it really does start right from the very beginning where we tie our worth as a parent and our efficacy as a parent to how our baby is sleeping, which is largely out of our control. There are things that we can do to help, of course, and to, you know, encourage good sleep and to have healthy sleep hygiene, and all of that is super important. But again, at the end of the day, that baby is their own unique person, and a lot of what they're going to do as far as sleep goes is completely unrelated to us and has nothing to do with us.
Right.
Yeah.
It really is wild to think about that, of how many people ask us constantly how our baby's sleeping. Are they sleeping through the night yet? And yeah. I think it comes from a place of caring. They want to make sure that you're doing well. But do you think that previous generations, maybe it's the monitors? Maybe it's the fact that we have video monitors all the time, that we are now just more aware of our children. And so maybe that ability to kind of cut ties helped. Like, what do you think is part of this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, the generational thing is so real. Like, I see comments all the time from people in the boomer generation who say things like, oh, we put our baby in their own room from day one and they just started sleeping through the night. It's like, well,
yeah, no, they didn't.
They probably didn't. I can almost guarantee they didn't. You just didn't hear them. And, you know, memory also. I mean, my first was born 8 years ago and I can't remember everything that happened. So imagine 40 years from now, I'm not going to have any idea. And you're right. I think a lot of times, too, it does come from good intentions. I remember my mother-in-law, who I absolutely adore, asking me every day, because I saw her almost every day, how many times was he up last night? Are you okay? Yeah. How did he sleep? And when I would tell her, she would just like give me this pity look and just say, oh, God, like, you know, and that made me feel like, oh,
right. Right.
And I didn't want to feel pitied. But I know that it was just because she was concerned about me not getting enough sleep and making sure that I was okay and that my mental health was all right. So I do understand it to that degree, but I think there are other ways that people can ask or, check in that don't make you feel like you're failing a test if you don't give them the answer that they want.
Yeah. So we can't control what they ask, but we can control what we answer and how we drive the conversation. Do you have any good talking points?
Yeah, so I usually would just shut it down. So if you don't want to engage, and it doesn't mean you have to be rude, but if you don't want to engage in that conversation, you can just say like, oh, I have no idea, or oh, who knows, they slept like a baby. Something like that that's just super, short, but not, rude or aggressive. But that kind of sends the message like, I'm not going to engage in this conversation. Like, it's not something I want to talk about. And then you can just shift the topic. How did you sleep last night? How many times did you wake up last night? That's usually something that works pretty well to shut it down pretty quickly.
That's a great point, because I feel like we know this as we get older, we wake up more often in our sleep anyway, and sleep because so maybe it's coming from a personal place. Like, I hope you're sleeping more than I am. So
right. Totally. I mean, I woke up probably twice last night to go pee. So, I mean, none of us truly sleep through the night.
Exactly. Right. So, but when you are in it, and if you have a baby who's having trouble sleeping, it adds so much to feeling like you're failing and feeling like you're not doing enough. And it makes it hard to connect with other moms who may not be having that challenge, because you hear so much of like, well, just tell them, or just put them down, just stop holding them, just stop doing these things. So how can we start to battle that resentment or that judgment and that shame when we start to interact with people who are having miraculous success stories?
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And usually where I direct parents first is to educate themselves on temperament and on sleep totals. So those are two things that are backed by decades of science and research. And they can help us kind of make sense of why my baby might be doing things so differently from another baby. And it doesn't have anything to do with how good of a mom I am or how good of a mom that friend is, right? So we're all doing our best. If there were one perfect way for a baby to sleep, everybody would just do it. And that would be the end of it. It wouldn't be like this billion-dollar industry of sleep training and snooze and, all of that stuff to get babies to sleep, right? So that's just something to keep in mind, is that there is no one perfect answer, no one perfect approach, no one thing that works for everyone. And so understanding temperament, which is a baby's just kind of like the way that they react and respond to their environment and their internal world, understanding how that impacts sleep and everything. And then also understanding that sleep is a spectrum, and there are average sleep totals for each age group that can vary by hours. So if you have a newborn and you're talking to another newborn mom, and they're saying that their baby sleeps 12 hours a night and takes 3-hour naps, and yours does 9-hour nights and maybe an hour-long naps, those are both probably within the normal range. It's just not fair.
Right. You hear those people who have the baby sleeping from 7 to 7, and I'm like, I'm lucky if I get 10 to 7. Like,
right. And a lot of that is just genetic. And you said that your husband is the same way, which makes total sense. So that's just something that I think helps just ease parents' minds a little bit, because I think we all think we need to just search. We need to just look and we'll find the perfect answer. And it's unfortunately not that simple. But I think just knowing that can be freeing at the same time.
Right. It's so interesting you brought up the industry, because, I mean, you're a part of this industry that people are desperately looking for answers for. I mean, I've tried a few different things. When you mentioned the snoo, I got a cheap snoo on Marketplace that we just used it. I called it Robo Mom. It was just, I just had it on jiggle mode. It wasn't on like all the full settings, but it bought me some time every now and then. And I was very grateful for that. And then sold it for more than I bought it for. So I'm very grateful.
It's a whole thing, I know.
To my snoo. But we come up with all of these different things to try to help us, and we grasp at straws, and sometimes we miss out on some of the most obvious answers. Like for me, with my second baby, I went deep into learning about safe co-sleeping and bed sharing, and I just went with that. So can you talk about what things we might be missing when we are looking at the big picture of trying to solve this problem?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because I did that with my second and third too. And I honestly never really felt chronically exhausted because I wasn't with my first, I mentioned, in the last episode, I mentioned that, he was actually sleeping pretty normally, but I was still really anxious and really exhausted. And that was because I was getting up and going to resettle him in his room and, feeding him, doing all the things to get him back to sleep, putting him back down, getting back into my room, and then just ruminating with anxiety about when he was going to wake up again. And I lost out on hours of sleep per night because of that. Whereas when you are co-sleeping or bed sharing and your baby's right there, at least for me, I didn't have that same anxiety about being woken up because it was just so easy to respond to them and feed them when they were right there. Now, bed sharing, co-sleeping is definitely not for everybody. There are safety guidelines you need to be able to follow, and not everybody wants to, and that's totally valid. But I do think offering it as a valid choice is something that we need to do a better job of in this country. Other countries have taken that abstinence only approach kind of off the table, and they've said, hey, we know most parents are going to bed share at some point in time, so let's give them the information they need to do it more safely. And they've seen really great results by doing it that way. And I think in America, we tend to think our way is the best way, and we need to sometimes be looking to other places and other cultures to see how they're making it work. Because sleep training, the way that we think about it is really not a thing in most of the world. Most of the world co-sleeps. And even if they don't co-sleep, they don't freak out about sleep the way that we do. They don't try to hack it. They don't try to, get around it. They just kind of accept that it's normal in the first couple of years of parenthood to be responding to your baby that's waking up. And I think, as hard as it is, and again, there are lots of factors why it's harder for us in America to deal with that. I do think that our expectations and our mindset play a huge role. And if we had realistic expectations and a mindset that this is normal, it's okay that we're doing this, it will pass, I think that really does help our mental health.
Yeah, we want children to act like mini adults a lot of the times. And we talked about this in the last episode a little bit, where if you sleep, I just want to mention it again because I think it's important. If you're one of those parents that did sleep training, cried out with your kid, it probably worked for you and did no damage, and you are totally fine. You didn't do anything wrong. If you're like me and you tried it and it literally hit you in your nervous system and gut how terrible it was and how bad of a match it was, you probably made a change. And that's great. I don't think there's any wrong way to do this. It's just about being responsive to your child. And I want to talk about that anxiety you brought up about how co-sleeping is not for everybody, because I get it. I get if that's something you bed share, you never want to do. But I think every family should at least learn the safety, because you're gonna fall asleep with your baby, and or you're gonna wake up and you're gonna be like, they're still there, or are they? Did they fall off? And you don't want to do it on a couch or in a chair. You want to do it in a bed. So take the time if you have a newborn in your life or somebody with a newborn to learn about that. Now, the next thing I want to dive into is when we feel good. We feel great. Like our baby's doing the thing. They are sleeping. Maybe they're older now. Because that's even worse. It is when you're in a rhythm and then it changes, a sleep regression, daylight savings time, you stayed out all night going to a friend's house, like anything changed in their environment. How do we not then spiral?
It's so hard. Someone messaged me recently, and they were like, oh my gosh, Rachel, we just traveled. We just got back. My 5-year-old or 4-year-old has been waking up at 3 a.m. I can't do this. What do I do? And I said, well, okay, how long has this been going on? She's like, 2 days. And I was like, okay, you need to give it some time.
Yep.
So I know that's a lot easier said than done when you're the one being woken up at, 3, 4 a.m. That's not me. It's easy for me to say, just give it time. Yep. So I do get it. But honestly, most of it with sleep regressions, with travel, with daylight savings, all of that kind of stuff, most of it is honestly just giving it time and trusting that the body will catch up eventually. So for things that have to do with like time changes, traveling across time zones, daylight savings, things like that, really the best things that you can do are using light and dark to your advantage to kind of signal to the brain that it's time to be awake or that it's time to sleep. So I usually recommend lots of natural sunlight during the day, and then dim, calm, as few screens as possible in the evening hours when you'd rather them be asleep. And again, it can take up to a week, sometimes a little longer for them to adjust depending on how dramatic the time change was. But honestly, just giving it time and trying to not freak out is really, really helpful. And then getting back into your bedtime routine again as soon as possible. So if you have a really strong, consistent, predictable bedtime routine, this is based in research to improve sleep, and it's dose dependent. So that means that the earlier you start and the more consistent you are, the better it works. So I'm a big fan of a nice, simple bedtime routine, and something kind of goes off track, you just always come back to that as like your guiding star.
That's such good advice of just have these basic things, and sunlight. If you can get into it, let it work with you, let it work for you. Now, we are in October if you're listening to this when it's airing. And if you're not, I'm sure there's a daylight savings time change coming up for you. Now, how important is it that we prepare or do something different for this? Or is it important?
It's really not. I mean, I have blog posts on both of the time changes, both for spring and fall. So I don't know if you want to include those in your show notes, if it's helpful for people. I basically talk about 3 approaches. One is, a week or so before you start kind of inching your clock or your bedtime, either forward or backward, depending on which time change it is. And then each night you adjust by 15, 20 minutes or so. And then by the time the change comes, you're already on that new schedule and you're good to go. It's not really realistic for everybody though. Like people have to get up at certain times for school, daycare, whatever it is. So, you don't have to do it that way. Maybe just 2 days before you adjust by 30 minutes or so. Yeah. And then that's fine. You could do it like me. We don't really do anything.
I don't either.
Figure it out. And like for example, in the summertime, we actually prefer our kids going to bed a little bit later, right? So we kind of just roll with it when it's the spring one, and we just let them start to stay up later. We're traveling a lot. I'm from the East Coast, so we're going that way a lot. It just makes sense for them to stay up later. So, again, you could also just do it that way where you are just flexible with your bedtime and you don't really think about it or stress about it too much.
That's really great advice, because I think we talk about mom guilt all the time. You hear it all the time. It's everywhere. And this is such a big piece of it, of the shoulds. I should be doing more. I should be preparing for this. I should be changing things, but you don't necessarily have to. I don't think the big message here is there's no wrong way to do it. Like for my second baby, I wore him for every single nap or napped on the couch, and he's sleeping by himself now, and he's fine. And even now, I am no model parent for bedtime. We don't even do bedtime anymore because my boys are just so wild. They would just run around no matter what. And I was losing my freaking mind. I would be just raging because they wouldn't stop running. Like they wouldn't listen to the book. They wouldn't take the so we did, one night I freaked out and I was like, we're doing family movie night. We're watching Moana. And we all snuggled on the couch and they fell asleep within minutes.
Sweet. Yeah.
And now every night we just do family movie night. And for a long time, I felt like this is horrible. I am not. And then I thought, you know what? They're going to be teenagers. They're going to go to college. And whatever sleep hygiene I give them, they're going to ruin. They're going to do their own thing anyway. They're going to be up all night playing video games. So my job right now is to just make sure they're healthy, make sure they're rested, and make sure they're loved, and lots of other things. But what do you say about the mom guilt that we experience when we feel like we're not doing the right thing?
Yeah. I think if you're even worried about that, like if you're even worried about messing up your kid or like you're probably doing fine already, because bad parents don't worry about that or don't care about that, right? So I think even just checking in with yourself and being like, I'm feeling worried about this. I'm feeling guilty for this. Is this something that I think my child might need therapy someday for? If the answer is no, you're probably fine. So I would bet you $1 million that when your kids grow up, they're going to say one of their favorite memories is snuggling with you on the couch and watching a movie before bed. Right. So that's a win. That's a net positive, right? If it's affecting their sleep, if they're not getting the rest that they need, if, whatever, then maybe you make a change. But I think we put so much unnecessary pressure on ourselves to be perfect, and nobody's perfect. And honestly, if you are listening to this and if you are raging at your kids every night, you're yelling, you're going to bed feeling awful because of how bedtime went, and throwing on a show or a movie or doing something like that makes everybody feel calm and connected at the end of the day instead, then do that. Yeah. It's so much more important. So I think social media is so wonderful for so many reasons because it can connect us and educate us, but it also has this negative side where we're comparing ourselves to these quote unquote perfect parents, and you have no idea what they're doing in their homes for real. So try not to compare yourself, and try to just stick to what's important. And what's important is, like you said, just making sure that your kids are healthy and that they are feeling loved and connected. Those are the most important things. It's proven in research that that's the biggest indicator of how a child grows up, is how their attachment is with their caregiver. So if you're feeling guilty or you're feeling like you've messed up, like just always go back to that. Yeah. And if that connection is there and if that attachment is strong, then you're doing great.
I think that sleep and feeding and TV, maybe screen times, are like the dirty little secrets of every family. Somebody's got something that they're doing that they don't want to advertise to everybody else because it feels icky. But it's working. And what you said, you just want to make sure those kids are leaving with a great experience and that they're going to be successful eventually on their own or not in therapy. They'll probably be in therapy, but not because of, hopefully not because of anything we did.
Not because of Moana, not because of Moana before bed. I can guarantee
definitely not because of Moana. So how do we support ourselves emotionally when we are tired through it, when we're leaning into the baby sleep that isn't happening and we're just letting it run its course? How do we support ourselves through that?
Yeah, I think one thing is, and this sounds impossible when you're going through the baby sleep stage, but getting as much rest and sleep yourself as you can. And that's going to look different for everybody. And it's going to depend on your sleep approach with your child. And it's going to depend on your support system and your relationship and all of that stuff. But I think one thing that I really recommend for new parents is taking shifts with a partner if you have one. So research shows that 4 hours of uninterrupted sleep can be really restorative and can really help protect your mental health, even if it's only once or twice a week. So maybe that means you hand the monitor to your partner, you put in some headphones, you put on an eye mask, you blast the sound machine, you get into your nice, cool, clean sheets, and you just conk out for 4 hours at least. So maybe it's that first shift where your baby is maybe doing a longer stretch, or maybe your partner can hold them for a while. So you're going to get sleep from like 8 to midnight, and then your partner takes a turn. So doing that, even just a couple times a week, can make a huge, huge difference if you're getting really, really broken sleep with your baby. Another thing is obviously therapy, which is not accessible to so many people. I wish that it were universally paid for and available to everyone. Unfortunately, it's not. But if it is something that you are well-resourced enough to have access to, just talking to someone can help so much. This was actually a really interesting stat that came out of a study that they did on infant sleep training. So they looked at all these different sleep training techniques. They looked at all these parents that were, going through a certain sleep training program or regimen. And what they found was that so in addition to that, I should give more context. In addition to the sleep training, they also gave every family a nurse that they could call and talk to, and so that they could, troubleshoot with this person and kind of just talk about what's going on.
Wow.
And so at the end of the study, the intervention or the sleep training technique or whatever you want to call it that was found to be the most helpful was talking to someone. It wasn't any one sleep hack or sleep training program or book. Yeah. It was literally just having someone to talk to. That was the thing that most parents, I think it was 96%, said was the most helpful thing. So whether that's a therapist, whether that's a friend, whether that's someone online, like your partner, whoever it is, just talk to someone and it'll make you feel so much less alone.
So much less. And I want to point out that there's Postpartum Support International that has free hotline you can call and text anytime that you have that. So if therapy's out of reach, you can hopefully text somebody. And that's a really great resource to have.
Yeah, they have amazing resources. They've got like free support groups and things like that too, even for partners. So that's a really great one.
Yeah. And I want to share too that it's not just the baby phase, right? Your 4-year-old, your 5-year-old, your 8-year-old is going to be up all night for a couple nights in a row sometimes. Maybe they're sick. Maybe they're just going through something. Maybe there's a lot of anxiety. And I don't know about you, but I think it's worse when they're not babies, when you lose 1 or 2 nights of sleep because your body isn't in survival mode anymore. You're like
Totally.
used to it. But all these same things are true. Repeating a mantra of I'm resting, and rest is important. Rest is also restorative, like telling yourself that it's okay that you're not sleeping right now, and taking those shifts, going back to the basics. Pull out all those resources that you've had from before when you're really in it, when you're not sleeping.
For sure.
This has been incredible. I feel like I have the tools to leave and support my children's sleep in whatever way I feel is best. I feel like I have your permission slip to just go forth and make it happen.
You do, definitely.
Thank you so much. So tell us about the supports that you offer families and where they can find you.
Yeah, so I'm on social media at Hey Sleepy Baby. My website is also just heysleepybaby.com. I've got lots of free info on there, some free guides you can download, tons of blog posts with tons of great information. I also have a podcast called No One Told Us, where I have experts that come on and talk about all different things, not just sleep. And we offer courses and workshops as well. So if you're going through something like wanting to move on from co-sleeping, wanting to get your child in their own bed, you're dealing with bedtime battles and you don't know why or what to do, I have courses on that. And then I also have consultations. So I have a whole team of incredible practitioners that will help you if you are really just stuck and want some hand-holding and want someone to tell you exactly what to do, and to also just give you like the support and kind of like what we were just saying, like just someone to talk to and vent to, and someone to reassure you that it's going to be okay, that you're normal, that you'll get through it. So all of that is available at my website too.
And your resources are so powerful. I took your sleep temperament just temperament workshop when my first was little, and that was life-changing. It really changed so much. You. And I think I have a floor bed guide that I did at one point, a crib guide. So very, very realistic. Like, you can open up the guide. It's not going to be like 50 pages that you have to weed through. It gives you exactly what you need, when you need it, where you need it. So check out those resources. Rachael is such a gift. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
In the next episode, I'm pulling back the curtain on something that's been over a year in the making. After interviewing and working with dozens of moms about how they found themselves again in motherhood, I took all that insight and created a step-by-step method to help you do the same. It's called the Reset Method, and it's designed to guide you back to your joy, your identity, and the person you're becoming. You don't want to miss this one. There's a version of you that feels grounded, joyful, and more like you. The Mom Moment Memo helps you take steps towards her. Head to momidentityproject.com/memo or find the link in the show notes so you can join us. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to share it with a friend. You can also really help this podcast find the moms who need it by scrolling down and leaving a 5-star rating and a quick written review or a comment, or liking and subscribing if you're watching this on YouTube. I'd love for you to let me know your favorite part either through the reviews and comments or by DMing me on Instagram at momidentityproject. I can't wait to hear from you.